The salt-laced wind, sharp as shattered glass, bit at Martin's face as he killed the engine of his battered sedan. Seabrook. The name itself tasted of rust and brine on his tongue. Dusk bled across the bruised November sky, mirroring the ache in his chest. A familiar companion these past 5 years. He'd sworn never to return, yet here he was, drawn back by the relentless undertow of an unsolved disappearance. A young woman named Lily, whose ghost still walked the corridors of his mind. His boots crunched on the wet asphalt of the deserted promenade, each footfall an echo in the vast emptiness of the off-season town. Shuttered shops, their vibrant summer colors faded to melancholic pastels, stood like hollow-eyed sentinels. The boardwalk, usually alive with laughter and the clatter of arcade games, was a skeletal expanse of weathered planks, slick with sea spray. Martin pulled his worn coat tighter, the chill seeping deep into his bones. It wasn't just the cold. Seabrook in winter was a place stripped bare, its cheerful facade peeled away to reveal something ancient and sorrowful. Why, Martin? Why drag yourself back to this mausoleum? The question, his own weary voice inside his head, offered no comfort. He knew why. Lily, her bright, hopeful face, her laughter like wind chimes, all swallowed by the indifferent gray of the North Atlantic. He'd been a young, eager investigator then, full of small-town justice. Lily's case had been his first major one, and his last. It had broken something in him, this town, this sea. He found the Mariner's Rest, the only inn showing a flicker of life, a single jaundiced light in its window. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of damp wood and old pipe tobacco. An ancient man with eyes like faded sea glass watched him approach the counter. His name tag read Silas. "Room for one," Martin said, his voice raspy. Silas nodded slowly, his gaze unnervingly steady. "Not many visitors this time of year. Most folks prefer to forget Seabrook when the sun turns shy." He pushed a heavy iron key across the scarred wooden counter. "Room 7, faces the water." A pause, then. "The sea. She has a long memory, son. Best not to stir what's settled." Martin merely grunted, the cryptic warning settling like a stone in his gut. He knew the local lore, the whispers of sea shepherds with their ghostly lanterns, of the hungry tides that claimed more than just ships. He dismissed them as fanciful tales back then. Now, adrift in his own sea of guilt, they felt plausible. His room was cold, Spartan, a single bed, a rickety wardrobe, a window framing the tumultuous gray expanse of the ocean, the rhythmic drip of a leaky gutter just outside his window. He didn't bother unpacking. Sleep, he knew, would be a fickle guest. The next day, Martin walked. He traced the paths he'd walked 5 years ago, a grim pilgrimage. The beach was a desolate canvas of wet sand and tangled seaweed, the mournful cry of a distant foghorn. He scanned the shoreline, his investigator's eye, dulled by time and regret, searching for something, anything. That's when he saw them. Faint impressions in the sand near the skeletal remains of the old pier. Footprints, small, child-sized, leading towards the churning water before vanishing. Half erased by the tide, yet undeniably there. His heart hammered against his ribs. Lily had been 19, not a child, but the prints, they pricked at a forgotten detail in the case file. A witness claiming to have seen a small figure on the beach the night Lily disappeared. He crouched, tracing the outline of a print with a trembling finger. The wind picked up, whipping sand into his eyes, carrying with it a sound so faint he almost missed it. It seemed to be coming from beneath the pier. Drawn by an invisible thread, Martin crawled under the rotting structure. The air was heavy with the stench of decay and brine. And there, half buried in the damp sand, was a small, tarnished music box. Its lid was open, the tiny ballerina frozen mid-pirouette. The melody, a simple, haunting lullaby, was the same one Lily's mother had said Lily used to hum. Martin's breath hitched. Coincidence? Or was the town, this cursed stretch of coast, finally offering up its secrets? His frayed nerves screamed at him to leave, to run. But the investigator in him, the part that had withered but not quite died, clung to this tangible clue. That night, back in his cold room, the town's oppressive silence was broken by a sound he'd almost forgotten. A lone gull's cry piercing the darkness precisely at midnight. A sharp, solitary gull's shriek, followed by a chilling stillness. He remembered it now. Lily's best friend had mentioned it. A gull crying at midnight every night for a week before Lily vanished. Martin had dismissed it. Another piece of seaside superstition. Now it felt like a nail hammered into the coffin of his skepticism. The gull's cry became his nightly tormentor, each shriek tightening the knot of dread in his stomach. He pored over old local history books borrowed from the inn's dusty lounge, his fingers tracing tales of the gloaming gulls said to be the lost souls of sailors, their cries, warnings, or invitations to the deep. He read about the sea shepherds, shadowy figures with lanterns who guided the lost, sometimes to safety, sometimes elsewhere. The music box lay on his nightstand, its silent presence a constant accusation. On the third night, the gull's cry was different, closer, and with it, a whisper, so faint he thought he'd imagined it. Lily. He was on his feet before he could think, his coat thrown hastily over his shoulders. The whisper, like a silken thread, pulled him out into the biting wind, towards the abandoned boathouse at the far end of the beach. He'd searched it meticulously 5 years ago, finding nothing but cobwebs and forgotten fishing gear. The boathouse door groaned open on rusted hinges, the prolonged, eerie creak of the door. Inside, the darkness was absolute, the air thick with the smell of salt, mildew, and something else. Something faintly sweet, like decaying flowers. He fumbled for his flashlight, its beam cutting a shaky path through the gloom. Old nets hung like macabre decorations. Decaying lobster pots lay scattered like bones. And then he saw it. In the far corner, a small makeshift altar. A collection of objects nestled amongst strange, faintly phosphorescent seaweed that pulsed with an unnatural light. A child's worn teddy bear, a tarnished silver locket, a faded photograph of a smiling young man in a sailor's uniform. And there, gleaming faintly in the eerie light, was Lily's silver charm bracelet, the one with the tiny seashell charm. The music box melody, the lullaby, filled the boathouse. But there was no music box here. The sound seemed to emanate from the very walls, from the whispering sea outside. The whisper of Lily's name was all around him now, carried on a chilling draft that extinguished his flashlight. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at his throat. He stumbled back, his hand outstretched, searching for the door. Then he saw it, through a grimy window, out on the black, churning water. A faint, bobbing light, a lantern, held by a tall, shadowed figure in a boat, its form indistinct against the raging sea. A sea shepherd. Martin didn't scream. He couldn't. He could only stare, frozen, as the lantern light seemed to beckon him. The whispers intensified, swirling around him, promising... what? Answers? Oblivion? He never knew how he got out of the boathouse. He found himself back on the beach, gasping for breath, the taste of salt and terror on his lips. The lantern light was gone. The whispers had receded, replaced by the mournful sigh of the wind. Martin left Seabrook the next morning, before the pale winter sun could fully rise. He didn't have answers, not the kind that could close a case file. Lily was gone, taken by something far older and more patient than any human predator. The boathouse, the altar, the sea shepherd. They were part of a truth that Seabrook held close, a truth woven into the very fabric of its existence. He drove away. The image of the lantern on the dark water burned into his memory. The town's secrets remained, vast and unfathomable as the ocean itself. As he crossed the town line, he heard it one last time carried on the wind. Martin knew he wouldn't be back, but a new, chilling question had taken root in his soul, a question that would haunt him for the rest of his days. Had the Sea Shepherd been beckoning to Lily all those years ago, or had it been waiting, patiently, for him? And what happens when the tide, having whispered your name, finally decides to call you home?